Hello to all you curious minds of deep dive. Welcome to another deep dive. We always picture astronauts as flawless heroes with an iron will, resolute figures staring into the endless black of space without a hint of fear. But this image is a beautiful lie, an artful mask that hides a story stranger and more profound than any science fiction film. Because the final frontier isn't the void between planets. The final frontier is the complex and fragile world within ourselves. By the end of this video, you will understand why humanity's greatest achievement became one astronaut's deepest nightmare, and for another, a mystical revelation. Because if you know this truth, your perspective on space, on Earth, and even on yourself will change forever. Let's start with a common belief. Astronauts are made of steel. People who pass the world's toughest psychological exams to prove that nothing can break them. This is partly true. For decades, NASA sought to select individuals who were psychologically rock solid. But the reality is that space is a merciless laboratory, a lab that pushes even the strongest minds to their breaking point. Imagine being imprisoned for months, perhaps years, in a metal can floating in the void. A place where every day is the same as the last, absolute monotony. The same food, the same work, and the same faces. There is no escape. You can't go for a walk, you can't open a door for a breath of fresh air. You are in a sealed ecosystem where every resource is limited and every inch is meticulously planned. This spacecraft isn't just a vehicle, it's an active environmental stressor. This is where the mind starts to play strange games. Psychologists have identified 3 predictable stages of adaptation in such an environment. The first stage is heightened anxiety. In the early days, everything is frightening. The sound of the machinery, the feeling of weightlessness, and the constant thought that one small mistake could cost everyone their lives. This anxiety leads to sleeplessness and irritability, but the human body and mind are machines of adaptation. After a while, this initial anxiety subsides and gives way to the second stage, depression and routine. This is the longest and most dangerous phase. It's where monotony, like a slow poison, seeps into your soul. You feel trapped in an endless cycle of repetitive tasks. The longing for Earth, for family, for simple things like the smell of rain on soil becomes a chronic ache. It is in this stage that many crew members regret having volunteered for the mission. And finally, the third stage arrives, anticipation of return. As the end of the mission approaches, a sense of joy and expectation fills everyone. But this excitement is also accompanied by new anxieties. The worry of readapting to life on Earth and facing a world that has moved on without you. But this is just the beginning, because the greatest challenge isn't tolerating loneliness. It's tolerating each other. An astronaut crew is a small, isolated society under a microscope. Here, there is no escape from social friction. A bad joke, a small nervous habit, or a simple disagreement can escalate into a full-blown crisis over time. This is why crew selection is the first line of defense against psychological breakdown. Research has shown that highly competitive personalities, those who always want to be better than others, are toxic for long-duration missions. They create stress and hostility, destroying teamwork. Instead, NASA looks for individuals with 2 key traits: a work orientation, the motivation to work hard because work is intrinsically valuable, and a mastery orientation, the desire to improve upon one's own best performance. But even with the best selections, conflict is inevitable. In small, isolated groups, 2 types of leaders often emerge naturally. One is the task-oriented leader who focuses on mission goals and pushes everyone to get the job done. The other is the socio-emotional leader, the one who is concerned about everyone's feelings and tries to keep the team's morale high. This delicate balance is what makes a mission succeed or fail. Because in space, a moment of poor judgment caused by stress or conflict can be catastrophic. Do you think I'm exaggerating? The history of space exploration is filled with these terrifying moments. During the Apollo 13 crisis, as the crippled spacecraft was re-entering Earth's atmosphere, radio contact was lost for longer than expected. On the ground, in mission control, the seconds dragged on like hours. A heavy silence filled the room. In those moments, many engineers and managers entered a phase of deep depression. They were certain the heat shield had failed and the astronauts were lost. This shows how life or death stress can impair the judgment of an entire team, whether on the ground or in space. Or another, Less discussed case. During one of the Mercury missions, an astronaut became so captivated by taking photos of space that he wasted a significant amount of precious control fuel to take unauthorized pictures, severely limiting the spacecraft's maneuverability. It was an irrational and dangerous behavior born from psychological pressure. Now, imagine all these pressures, loneliness, monotony, social conflict, and the stress of death, piling up. What happens to a human being? This is where our story splits into two completely different paths, two sides of the same coin, two fates that emerged from a shared experience. This is where space, like a merciless mirror, shows you everything that lies hidden in the deepest corners of your soul. Let's begin with the dark side of the mirror. The story of Buzz Aldrin, the second human to walk on the moon. For many, the hardest part of the mission begins after it's over. Returning to a mundane existence after experiencing the pinnacle of human exploration can create a profound sense of emptiness and anticlimax. After his historic Apollo 11 mission, Buzz Aldrin battled severe depression and alcoholism for years. His experience is a powerful case study of the psychological difficulties of returning to Earth. It was as if he had returned from a grand, meaningful world to a small, insignificant one. This "what's next?" phenomenon plagued many astronauts. At the first press conference after the Apollo 11 return, many noticed the crew's strange demeanor. They looked defeated and sad. It was as if they couldn't process the monumental experience and explain it to a world that could never understand them. This psychological burden, this deep sense of isolation that comes from an experience no one else on Earth can comprehend, can shatter a soul. This was one side of the mirror. But this mirror had another side, a side that was just as powerful but in the opposite direction. For many astronauts, the most powerful experience was not walking on the moon. It was seeing the Earth from a distance, a phenomenon known as the overview effect. This isn't just enjoying a beautiful view. It is a profound cognitive shift in awareness, a fundamental change in perspective that redefines your understanding of the planet, of humanity, and of existence itself. Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 astronaut, described this experience. He said that on his journey to Earth, he was suddenly overcome with an instant global consciousness, a deep sense of oneness. He said, "I developed an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world and a compulsion to do something about it." Mitchell compared this feeling to a mystical concept from ancient Indian texts, samadhi, a state where you see things in their separateness, but experience them viscerally as a unified whole. This experience was so transformative for Mitchell that after returning to Earth, he dedicated the rest of his life to studying consciousness and the connection between science and spirituality. This sense of responsibility, this shift from a national to a planetary identity, is a recurring theme among astronauts. Michael Collins, the Apollo 11 pilot, said, "The Earth must become as it appears. Blue and white, not capitalist or communist, blue and white, not rich or poor." This was the bright side of the mirror, a spiritual transformation. But this brings us to a big question. How can the same experience, a journey to space, have two such contradictory results? How does it lead one person to depression and another to a spiritual awakening? And this is where we reach the turn in our story, the truth that shows us everything from a new angle. Perhaps space is inherently neither good nor bad, neither constructive nor destructive. Perhaps space is just an amplifier, a giant magnifying glass that takes whatever you already have inside you, whether it's strength or weakness, hope or fear, and makes it 1,000 times bigger right before your eyes. Space doesn't change you, it makes you more of who you already are. Buzz Aldrin went to space carrying the psychological pressures and expectations that already existed in his life, and space turned those pressures into a full-blown crisis. Edgar Mitchell went to space with deep philosophical and spiritual questions, and space gave him a shocking and personal answer. This means the final frontier truly is within us. A journey to Mars or the farthest galaxies is ultimately a journey into the depths of our own psyche. We don't escape ourselves by escaping Earth. We meet ourselves in the purest and most unforgiving form possible. But this mirror has a third and even stranger side. The overview effect is not always a pleasant, mystical experience. William Shatner, the famous actor, had a completely different reaction after his short suborbital flight in 2021. Instead of joy and unity, he experienced an overwhelming sadness. He said the trip to space, which he expected to be a celebration, felt like a funeral. He felt, with his entire being, the slow death of Earth at our own hands. This shows that the mirror can be both transformative and traumatic. It can give you a sense of unity and purpose, or it can confront you with grief, anxiety, and insignificance. So for the next generation of explorers who will go to the moon and Mars, the greatest challenge isn't building better rockets or stronger radiation shields. The greatest challenge is preparing the human being to face themselves in this cosmic mirror. We must learn how to protect the mental health of astronauts, not just from the dangers, but also from the wonders of this journey. Because the success of future exploration depends on a comprehensive strategy for behavioral health. It's not enough to select resilient people. We must actively support their psychological well-being before, during, and after their missions. In the end, humanity's journey to space is not the story of our quest to discover the universe. It is the story of our quest to discover ourselves. We go to space to understand who we are in the deepest layers of our being. Astronauts are the pioneers of this inner journey. They show us how fragile a human can be under extreme conditions, and at the same time, how boundless our capacity is for transformation and wonder. The great astronomer Carl Sagan has a sentence that summarizes this entire journey. The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. Perhaps going to space is just a way of remembering this truth. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. If this video made you think, even for a moment, about our place in this universe, please support Deep Dive by liking and subscribing. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to us. Let us know in the comments, if you had the chance to go to space, what do you think the mirror of space would show you about yourself? We appreciate you all so much, and until the next video, think deep. Perhaps the next time you look up at the night sky, you'll remember that the greatest discoveries aren't out there. They're waiting right here, inside of us.